Sonic Mania, a rather simple game from the concept alone, make a sequel to the highly rated and loved original Sonic games. Although, Sega's previous attempts of recreating the classic Sonic experience never felt authentic, like a true sequel to Sonic 3 Knuckles. That is, until now.
But first things first, while I love Sonic Mania, unfortunately we won't be looking at this edition of it today. Unfortunately, way too much time has passed and I feel like I'd be super late to the party. So instead, we'll be looking at this edition instead, Sonic Mania Plus. Yeah, Sonic Mania Plus, the expansion pack / re-release that recently brought Sonic Mania back into discussion. But at least this time, I'm not alone. I actually decided to bring a friend along for this review. So come on, introduce yourself to the world of my dead channel. Hey, is this supposed to... I don't hear anything. Hold on. Kyle? Here, let me just call him real quick.
Yo, what's up? You got me right before I was gonna fucking kill myself.
Kyle, what the fuck, man? Are you gonna be in my review or not?
Bro, can't you see I'm like retired? I've moved on.
But dude, this isn't just any Sonic game. It's got no terrible voice acting, no linear levels or wisps. It's Sonic Mania, dude.
Oh shit, you should have mentioned that earlier. If it's Mania, yeah, that's worth it. I'll come out of hiding for that.
Awesome, so... Sonic Forces. You're in the review, right?
Fuck that game. If you mention that again, we're through with this vid and I'm actually gonna hang myself.
Okay. Guess not. I guess it's time to start the review.
Sonic Mania, in every sort of way, is a true classic Sonic game that just so happened to release in 2017. From the beautifully animated 2D intro, to the main title screen, to even the save select screen. Everything about this title just screamed retro Sonic and leave it to the fans to get it right. And yeah, I said fans. Just about everyone knows this by now, but Sonic Mania isn't a game made by Sonic Team, but rather many talented people from the Sonic hacking and modding community to create an authentic Sonic experience.
At the very helm of the project is Christian Whitehead, the one person responsible for the Sonic HD mobile ports using his retro engine to recreate the true classic Sonic physics needed for a classic Sonic game. Whitehead, along with Stealth, another well-known person in the community, were able to partner up for this project to make Sonic Mania possible.
There is so much we can talk about when it comes to this game, but it's only fitting that we get the extremely basic but fitting story out of the way.
Whoa, Victor, are you really gonna skip that amazing opening cutscene at the title screen? I know almost a year has passed, but are you not even gonna mention it at all?
Oh shit, you're right. It did slip my mind. I guess we should mention it since it left quite an impact on the community after seeing it.
Longtime Sonic fan Tyson Hess was brought aboard to create an animated opening as well as animated ending sequences in Sonic Mania, similar to how Sonic CD had animated sequences of their own.
And honestly, the animated sequences in this game were really well done. Tyson's design for Sonic is simple, yet very expressive and looks great during movement. His design seems to take a lot of influence by the design used in the Sonic CD animated sequences, with the very thin limbs, taller look, and the big glove and sock cuffs to name a few similarities. Although it does have Hess's own touch as well. The animations themselves are fluid, full of character, and really fun to watch. It is just as enjoyable watching it move at full speed as it is seeing it frame by frame. And visually, it's the cherry on top to this game's already beautiful visuals and much appreciated nod towards Sonic CD and fans of its 2D animated sequences. Now that we got that out of the way, we can move on with the story. Sonic Mania, taking place after Sonic 3 Knuckles, starts off with Sonic and his sidekick Tails, using the tornado to fly towards Angel Island to locate an unfamiliar energy source. Sonic and Tails land only to see that a bunch of egg robos have already beaten them to the power source, which by the way is called the Phantom Ruby, and you're gonna be hearing that a lot. As soon as the Phantom Ruby was unearthed, it releases its... energy? Transporting Sonic and the Egg Robos to Green Hill, as well as turning the Egg Robos into Eggman's new team, the Hard-Boiled Heavies. At this point, the game starts and it becomes Sonic and Tails' duty to stop the Hard-Boiled Heavies and Eggman from taking over the worlds, or whatever.
Hold up, Victor. One thing I gotta say about this opening cutscene is poor Knuckles, man. My guy is just laying down, chilling, and he gets bumped hard as fuck into this mess. You can tell he just wants nothing to do with this. But overall, the story is simple, short, and sweet. The story presents itself in a fashion similar to Sonic 3 and Knuckles, where there were many small scenes in between stages. Well, kind of.
Sonic Mania's story seems to be the only inconsistent thing with Mania, because there are times where the game gives you little cutscenes and stage transitions to show you a form of progression, which I have absolutely no problem with, except for the fact that sometimes they don't give you stage transitions only for them to appear in the next stage just fine. It's pretty jarring when just 5 minutes ago I was in Studiopolis when I saw a ship from Flying Battery, hitched a ride, and after beating it, I suddenly appeared in Press Garden Zone, with no explanation of how it happened.
And before everyone goes wild in the comment section, we know Sonic Mania Plus fixed that issue with more stage transitions, but it definitely should have been part of the original game instead of essentially waiting a year for an update to fix it. And even then, some transitions still make no sense. This comes off as rushed, which is a practice which has doomed several Sonic titles before it. Story-wise, it's a classic Sonic game. The game keeps its story concise and simple, and it allows its visuals to tell the narrative instead of cringe-inducing voices and awful dialogue. The story is no highlight for this game, but seeing as how this game is meant to be a spiritual successor to the classics, it definitely passes as a decent story, especially after the garbage disappointments we've been getting with recent Sonic games.
Either way, it's best that we move on to the absolute highlight of the Sonic Mania experience, the gameplay. And it's phenomenal. And an absolute joy to pick up the controller and run through the several stages the game presents to you.
Animations and visuals complement the game very well. Sonic Mania moves at a fluid 60 frames per second, and honestly, classic Sonic hasn't felt better. His HD 2D sprites and the amount of color on the screen is very pleasing to the eyes. Combined with his fluid and accurate control to the classics, the Mania team did a very good job in keeping the fundamentals of classic Sonic while modernizing him at the same time.
And for the first time in what seems like forever, you can actually play as a character that's not another version of Sonic.
Tails and Knuckles are back in full swing. Fully playable characters complete with their own stories and unique abilities that allows them to reach alternate paths and hidden goodies. And the Mania team, realizing that Sonic himself was kind of left with a simple attack move in the last game, they decided to give him a unique move of his own in the form of the drop dash, a maneuver which allows you to charge a spin dash mid-air for release on the ground.
The Mania team also managed to fix the one thing I myself have criticized almost every single Sonic game after Sonic 3 and Knuckles for, and that is the physics. After Sonic and Knuckles, and with the beginning of bringing Sonic into the third dimension, came the automation of Sonic games, where certain jumps and maneuvers you could pull off in the classics due to memorization and skill, became set pieces in heavily automated segments where you have little to no control. It also came to the point where Sonic teams started ignoring the classic fundamentals of the games in favor of more high-speed action. The classic roll move used to gain insane speed down hills became phased out, and eventually the spin dash as well. This affected both 3D and 2D Sonic, and after so many years of this happening, Sega just kind of forgot what made the classics so fun to begin with. Sonic wasn't just fast, he was only as fast as the player let him be. You could gain so much speed, but due to player error, you could lose it all. That's what made the extremely fast sequences so rewarding, because you worked for it, and it was all based on player skill, whether or not you could speedrun the stage or get out of that space without getting hurt. Sonic is at his best when he's in your control. There's only so much fun I can get after seeing Sonic run automatically down a building or seeing Sonic run away from a tornado. I'm glad that Whitehead and his team understood that without proper control of Sonic, they wouldn't even get remotely close to recreating what the classics did so many years ago.
Control-wise, it's perfect. It's honestly the best Sonic has felt in a while, and it's 100% accurate to the classics. It's so good that going back to older titles can feel a bit weird to play. It could be the improved smoothness and frame rate also putting that illusion on the eyes, but Mania managed to recreate and even improve upon the original game's control. It's really quite amazing that Whitehead's team was able to recreate and improve what Sega had so many years ago, and do it way better than Sega.
And I said this earlier, but Sonic 4 and Sonic Generations were steps into bringing back classic Sonic, but Sega kept trying to modernize it too much. Whether if it was keeping Sonic's modern design in Sonic 4, or relying too much on automation and a spin dash which was way too fast in Generations. Who knew that Sega's improvements to the classic Sonic formula was holding them back, and going back to basics solved what Sonic Team tried to figure out for so long. But at this point, I feel that it's best to talk about what everyone is going to experience in Sonic Mania 96% of the time: the stages. Green Hill returns for the 6 millionth time it seems. Although similar to Sonic Generations, old levels do return, but they're mostly given a unique spin. For example, Green Hill now has caves, and it's much bigger than in previous iterations. There are some familiar set pieces in these stages, but they're usually limited to only being the very beginning level set piece, and some returning gimmicks. While bringing back stages is something that is really hard to look past and can be criticized as unoriginal, Whitehead's team adds plenty of variety and new gimmicks to these old stages. I mean, you can just move on to Chemical Plant again? Not only does the return of Green Hill and Chemical Plant annoy me due to them being some of the most remixed stages in Sonic history, but also in the exact same order as Sonic Generations, that's a little bit too much for me. Even in Forces, both stages return once again. Sonic Team, please stop with the Green Hill and Chemical Plant oversaturation. Honestly, on my first playthrough, I was scared I was going to hear the tune to Sky Sanctuary once I finished Chemical Plant. Thankfully, they decided not to include that stage, which just, thank God. Sonic Mania at first glance appears to be a semi-remake of Sonic Generations. I'd even say that it's a successor to Sonic Generations. Why is that, you may ask? I'm sure you guys know already. It's because Sonic Mania not only brings back old stages, but also adds brand new original stages to the table as well. From the bright neon city lights of Studiopolis to the sandy Wild West inspired Mirage Saloon. Sonic Mania does include 4 original zones in addition to 8 returning zones. While I love that they added new stages, it also feels like it's a double-edged sword. Playing the new stages made me want more, and I can't help it but feel underwhelmed with the brand new classic Sonic experience I just went through, having only 4 zones to let the creators truly have their own ideas and creativity flourish.
The amount of detail they added to the old stages do make them feel somewhat new, but nothing made me feel as excited as going through stages like Studiopolis, where you can listen to new music pieces complemented by an original setting with plenty of Sega and Sonic references sprinkled throughout.
It felt like I was playing a cancelled Sonic 4 from the 90s whenever I was in one of the original stages, but I feel like these new stages were way too spread out with old stages in between, making me feel like I was playing a remaster of the classics and not a new game. If a sequel happens, which it definitely will, because I haven't seen a Sonic game rated this high in years, and plus it got its own animated series, they need to have fully original stages in the game. The Mania team have basically passed the test and have shown that they are capable of creating a fully original classic Sonic game. Now that their initiation is complete, it's their turn now to make something brand new.
The stages in Sonic Mania are really well made. Every stage is huge and filled with opportunities to explore and find hidden paths and items. What's really interesting about Mania is the game's use of Sonic 3 and Knuckles' higher, middle, and lower paths, but also combined with Sonic CD's lack of bottomless pits. This makes the stages really fun to explore because you don't need to worry about going to the high path, falling down and landing in a bottomless pit and dying and getting pissed off. They're also complemented very well with the original bosses they add in the game, such as Eggman's Weather Machine boss in Studiopolis, Metal Sonic's race/boss in Stardust Speedway, and the several hard-boiled heavy boss battles.
Each encounter with the hard-boiled heavies leads to very unique high-speed boss battles, and they're arguably the most exciting boss battles in the whole game. Now that I mentioned it, it seems like we got sidetracked a bit, and I know time is of the essence when it comes to these reviews. Damn you short attention spans, so let's do a quick sweep surrounding the several stages in this game.
The first original zone of the game, Studiopolis. Studiopolis? I don't know, you guys can argue about that in the comments. Studiopolis was one of the levels Sega decided to show a lot of prior to the game's release, which is by no means a bad thing. I'm never really the biggest fan of casino-inspired levels, as they usually rely on some stupid-ass gimmick that in the end ends up pissing me off, but this level doesn't do that at all. It's a casino level done right in every aspect, not to mention how the level is jam-packed with Sega and Sonic references throughout it, such as the Sega Sonic Popcorn Shop, the vans labeled High Class and Hornet, which is a reference to Daytona, USA, and even the freaking name is a reference. Studiopolis is the name of the studio where the voice actors record their lines for the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. And what might possibly be my favorite reference of all is the very last seconds of the zone after you defeat Robotnik in Act 2. The monitor displays an error code at the bottom which reads 072216, which, if you don't know, is the date of the Sonic Anniversary Party where the game got revealed back in July 2016. And in the background you can faintly hear the infamous buzzing from the horrible livestream of the event. I love that this shows that they went back into the level to add more references post-reveal while also taking a very funny jab at themselves.
Studiopolis is one of the most fun stages in the game. Not only is the soundtrack fucking jamming, but it's full of references to either the 90s Sonic or Sega themselves. Might be my favorite level of the entire game. Flying Battery Zone. The famous zone from Sonic & Knuckles returns, and it's faster and better than ever. It trims the fat from the original stage, and I love how much speed you can get. Also, added weather effects and the extra sense of scope you feel during this stage makes it much more enjoyable than the original. At least in my opinion.
Flying Battery Zone is pretty tight. To me, it's one of those levels that no matter how many times you play through Mania, it's a level that just never gets old. The upper and lower paths also differ from each other so much that it almost feels like you can play 3 acts of the zone. Another cool thing that they did with Act 2 is they utilize these post things that Sonic can swing on, and the level lets you get a feel of how they work, which comes in handy during the boss of Act 2, as your only means of attacking is by using that same gimmick from the level that you just played. That's how a game should be. The levels that you play shape your mindset of how to get further in the game and progress through it, rather than holding your hand the entire time. Press Garden Zone, the second original zone of the game. Definitely among my favorites in the game. The kick-ass track that plays in the background is one that'll make you want to stop playing for a minute and just listen to the music and just chill and vibe with it, you know? Another level with A+ level design, with plenty of moments where you just go fast as fuck, which is what Sonic's all about. Being able to spin dash up this slope and getting sucked into this tight little area and then spit out into a completely different part of the level never gets old. I'm also a sucker for snow/ice levels, so I was a little upset that there wasn't an entire zone dedicated to that in Mania. However, Act 2 of Press Garden is the perfect level to suffice. Beautiful magenta trees and vegetation mixed with the sparkling snow coming down, slowly blended with the outstanding music track in the background. This level is sure to be an enjoyable one for everybody.
Press Garden is definitely one of the most beautiful stages in this game. Everything is aesthetic. Press Garden also had some unique gimmicks never seen before in a Sonic game. It's full of originality, and considering other Sonic titles seem to struggle in that specific area, it's refreshing to have a stage just like this. Stardust Speedway. One of my favorite Sonic stages and favorites from Sonic CD returns, and it's more vibrant and colorful than ever. You start out in the past with giant plans and eventually travel to the good future in the form of a huge bright city with a funky jazz sound that is only helped by T-Lope's amazing soundtrack.
I loved that they made Act 2 a future representation of Stardust Speedway, rather than just making a typical Act 2 like you'd expect. Anything that catches me off guard like this did is always a treat. Ah, Hydrocity Zone. Yes, Hydrocity Zone. Not Hydro City Zone, Hydrocity Zone. I was never really a fan of underwater levels in Sonic games, but Hydrocity is one of the few exceptions. It's a prime example of how they changed already existing zones to make them still feel new and fresh, rather than just being a rehash from a previous game. Such as floating across the water on these boats, floating up to the surface in a freaking bubble while avoiding hazards, and of course the biggest plot twist of 2017, Sonic taking control of Robotnik's little flying machine thing. It's literally the boss from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but the roles have just been reversed. If y'all only knew the smile I had on my face when I played this for the first time.
I'm not a fucking maniac like Kyle, so I'm gonna call it by its real name, Hydro City Zone. And if Sonic Mania needed to bring back a water level, I'm glad it's Hydro City. Full of high-speed sequences and gimmicks that help keep the speed going. Not the biggest fan of water levels, but at least it's a better choice than Tidal Tempest or Labyrinth.
Mirage Saloon is one of the zones in this game that I come back to play the most. Obviously, it's a new original stage, but what's interesting is that it takes inspiration from a stage of the mobile port of Sonic CD that got scrapped, originally called Desert Dazzle. This is another level packed with references, the obvious Sky Chase reference in Act 1, and then the Heavy Magician straight up turning into Mirage's A Fang, Bark, and Bean during the boss of Act 2. Easily one of the highlights of the game. However, this level being as good as it is just wasn't enough to make me ignore the huge plot hole in the start of it. I hate being that guy who complains about plot holes, but this is just one that left me completely confused. Where the hell did the tornado come from? And Knuckles as well. The level just opens up with the three of them all together, and we're expected to just kind of be like, oh okay, they must have met up somewhere. It just bothered me that up until this level, Knuckles had no interaction with Sonic or Tails, so it left me feeling more confused than anything. Other than that, this was one of my personal favorite levels in the game.
The tornado just suddenly appearing with Knuckles on top makes no sense. But as for the actual level itself, it's extremely fun, and I love how this is a level setting unlike any other we've had. And the references to the Forgotten 3 make it feel like a real nod to the fans. Oil Ocean. Stage sucks, we're moving on. Lava Reef. Okay, I'm just kidding. Oil Ocean was always a stage I wasn't fond of. It had a boring soundtrack and the setting was just not that interesting to me. One thing I'll prefer over the Sonic 2 version is that there seems to be more going on, with the flames that engulf the entire stage, and the smoke, which needs to be cleared in a similar manner to Sandopolis Zone Act 2.
Nah, I'm pretty much with you, Victor. Fuck this stage. I didn't like it in Sonic 2, and I still don't really care for it now. Aside from the flame shield being utilized to light the oil on fire, which, by the way, I love that they did, nothing about this zone really stood out to me that much.
Lava Reef. To be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of the original Lava Reef. At this point in Sonic 3 Knuckles, I had Hypersonic and I just kinda cruised through the whole game. Although I'd argue that this expansion over the original stage and the original boss with Knuckles definitely makes this more enjoyable than the original stage.
I agree with you for the most part about Sonic and Tails' take on Lava Reef. However, in the Knuckles campaign, that's a different story. The fact that they reference the Hidden Palace Zone and the Super Emeralds in the Act 2 boss fight is just amazing to me. I always digged the lore behind Sonic 3 and Knuckles and the Super Emeralds and all that, so seeing that brought back to life here was fantastic. Even though these aren't the original Super Emeralds but rather stone relics in place of them, as the Super Emeralds are nowhere to be found. Perhaps they want to wait for a Mania follow-up to bring the Super Emeralds back.
Metallic Madness. The final stage from Sonic CD returns, and it's funky. That saxophone in Act 2, fucking amazing. Although to be honest, it's nowhere near as good as the other stages in Mania.
Yeah, I agree with you, Victor. Personally, it's my second least favorite level in the whole game. I would have preferred to have Wacky Workbench return.
Dude, Wacky Workbench is straight trash. Quartz Quadrant all the way.
Alright, facts, that shit was tight.
Titanic Monarch. The final stage before Eggman. While it was great that this final stage is one of Mania's original stages, I just don't get excited once I have to face this level. While nothing is wrong with this level, nothing broken, I'm just not a big fan of final levels in 2D Sonic games. It just seems like there's too many obstacles out to take your rings, which I totally get, it's for the challenge factor, but for me, it's not very fun having to worry about the next obstacle or having to slow down to keep my rings. And while yes, if I played the stage enough, I'd know what to do, but Titanic Monarch being the final stage means that I won't really be playing it too much unless I do a full playthrough or I go out of my way to select this stage. It's just too boring and slow for me. I'd honestly prefer Death Egg Zone from Sonic 3 over this. What about you, Kyle?
Titanic Monarch is definitely a dope final zone for the game. I agree with you about the Death Egg Zone being superior, but this was still a cool level to play through. It wasn't ridiculously difficult for no reason, but rather perfectly balanced to maintain an enjoyable experience throughout. I really liked how Act 2 had a dungeon-like format to it, jumping into the 4 portals and playing through each section as its own part of the zone. Definitely a cooler approach to the final act rather than going from point A to point B.
And here we are, the final battle with Eggman. To be honest, this boss isn't that hard, especially if you're me and you make sure to stock up on plenty of rings and collect all the Chaos Emeralds to turn Supersonic, and that's not a challenge. Fine, I'll face it the right way. It's a pretty unique Eggman boss. You attack, you roll away, you wait for him to be open again. There aren't any rings, so you have to rely on Eggman's grabbing attack, where he transports you to another room, where you fight a hard-built heavy for a random amount of time? I swear, sometimes I feel like I won't be able to go back to the main boss if I don't hit them, but sometimes I just transport back whenever. I don't know if this is some sort of pattern or I'm just missing something, but it just seems so random to me.
Yeah, this fight was on the fence with me. It had some dope-ass music playing, but I felt more confused than anything my first time playing it. I initially thought this was where you'd have to defeat the hard-boiled heavies as well as Robotnik, but it turns out they're literally just there for filler and hazards for the fight. I would have much rather had a fight similar to the Death Egg Zone Act 2.
But as soon as you deal the final blow, the ending cutscene plays and wait, what? And of course there's a Supersonic final boss battle, if you found the emeralds of course. I don't know if the Heavy King betrayed Eggman or what, but that's what I'm interpreting. Cause I don't know, the way how they're fighting with each other doesn't seem like they're on the same side.
The final battle itself has you control Supersonic to attack either Robotnik or the Heavy King by ramming into them while avoiding their attacks. You'd want to avoid Robotnik's attacks due to time being wasted if you'd get hit, and you'd want to avoid the Heavy King's attacks because they actually can hurt Supersonic and take your rings away. With each hit, they switch out and they come out with more attacks as the fight becomes more frantic.
Honestly, I'd argue this is one of the better final boss battles in Sonic games. It certainly isn't Doomsday Zone levels of good, but the Doomsday Zone boss battle has been kinda done to death in several games, so I can appreciate the original take on a Supersonic boss battle that isn't for once on rails. And come on, there have been some god-awful final boss battles before.
Although once that final blow is dealt, Robotnik is defeated and the entire stage of the Titanic Monarch begins to collapse. The Phantom Ruby then gets sucked into a portal it creates, and depending on whether or not you got all the Chaos Emeralds, Sonic is sucked into.
We are then treated to a cutscene as Tails and Knuckles look onwards as they manage to escape and are simply left watching as the chains on Little Planet are once again broken, and in a huge explosion of light, it's teleported back to wherever it goes when it's not in Sonic's world. Although once all the dust starts to settle, it takes the shape of Sonic's face in the sky as Sonic is last seen dashing through a portal made of pure energy as he poses one last time for the camera. Wow. I can't believe Sonic is fucking dead. I mean, I know he's not dead, but come on. The symbolism you can interpret here is real. And if Sega didn't say they were working on another Sonic game that would have released in the same year as Mania, I feel like this would have been a great ending to the franchise. But at the very heart of it, Sonic is a kid's game that brings in money, so of course, Sega wouldn't do anything ballsy like killing him off. At least, not again. And I guess that's kind of it. Aside from a weirdly split 2-player competition mode, collecting the Chaos Emeralds in a Vaporware Dreamland, which I think are probably the best special stages in the franchise by the way, and the Blue Sphere bonus stages found inside the goalposts, there isn't really much more Sonic Mania has to offer, aside from of course replaying the entire story with Tails and Knuckles to find other paths. Well, it would have been if this wasn't Sonic Mania Plus we're talking about here.
Sonic Mania Plus's big selling point is Encore Mode, a new original story mode for Sonic Mania which features Mighty and Ray returning for the first time in years. Although, Encore Mode kind of falls a little flat, I'll admit.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there, Kyle. Encore Mode, while sounding enticing, is basically the same as the main game. Level layouts are almost exactly the same, except for maybe a different enemy here or different set of spikes there. And the special rings are located in different places than they were in the regular story mode, except for some which just stayed in the exact same place. Actually, hold up, this is the perfect time to talk about the special stages in Encore Mode. Why are they so goddamn hard?
I know, right? If there's one question I would want to ask the people who made the Encore special stages, it's who the fuck hurt you? Going from Mania mode to Encore mode is such an immense difference. My first playthrough of Mania, I completed the game with all 7 emeralds. However, on my first playthrough of Encore mode, I finished it with 2. And I don't mean to sound like I'm complaining because anyone who knows me knows that I do like challenging games. This just kind of came out of nowhere as Encore mode itself isn't necessarily a hard mode to the normal game. If it was, then it would make a little bit more sense.
The Encore Mode special stages are crazy difficult to the point where I stopped trying to beat them the proper way and just use a glitch which lets you hit top speed by pressing the Y button. Special stages aside, in Encore Mode, the main difference you're gonna notice are the palette swaps for the stages. Palette swaps that turn Green Hill into Sunset Hill, Chemical Plant into Chemical Plant at Night Zone, and while these palette swaps can look refreshing, some of them just look kind of off, and some look straight up ugly.
Well, I guess there is still sort of one change left. That's the character system. There aren't lives in this mode. Instead, the different characters you have in your inventory are your lives. For example, if you had Sonic and Knuckles and while you were playing as Knuckles, you were to die, instead of being sent back to your last checkpoint, you instead take control of Sonic immediately and lose the ability to play as Knuckles again until you find a character icon box with Knuckles on it, or win him in the new pinball bonus stage. It's a nice system of handling lives, and it's unique for a Sonic game to do this sort of thing.
This character system also allows you to switch between your first 2 characters on the fly with the Y button, which is a pretty cool system. Kinda wish it was in the main game to be honest. Then again, the only story mode which allows you to have 2 characters is Sonic and Tails, so I guess we aren't missing too much. It's still a pretty cool system that with the ability to have 5 characters in your inventory, it can make some pretty cool teams like Mighty and Knuckles and of course Mighty and Ray.
Honestly, the best part of Encore mode is Mighty and Ray. I guess we should explain their new abilities a bit considering they are the new guys. Mighty is basically Sonic, still has the regular jump height, and he's fast, but one cool thing about Mighty is that in his ball form, due to his hard shell, he can bounce off spikes with no damage given to him. He can also do a drop attack which functions like a stomp. He drops down at high speed and shakes the ground upon impact. This drop attack can also be used to discover new paths, such as this one in Green Hill Zone, though the devs really didn't seem to take this opportunity as often as they should have. Which is a motherfucking fact, so I don't want to hear anyone bitching in the comments. Ray, however, is definitely the most fun to play as, at least in my opinion. His ability is basically gliding, although with a twist. It functions similar to Mario's cape where you can dive down in the air and use the momentum to glide back up at high speed.
It takes some time to master, but once you do, he becomes really fun to play as. Encore mode as a whole is a little divisive, because not only does it bring in an original story, as well as 2 new characters, and a new character switching mechanic, but
the level design itself is mostly the same, which kind of drags down the experience a little bit considering how much they added into Mania Plus only to not change the already existing content. And those fucking transitions still make no sense.
Speaking of making no sense, let's talk about the ending of Encore mode. After beating the final boss, the Phantom Ruby floats in the air, and creates a portal as Sonic and friends are left looking at it. Eggman sneaks away as the portal starts sucking up everything into it. It looks like Sonic and friends are sucked in as Eggman escapes, only for Sonic and the rest to go into their super forms, pass Eggman, and knock him into the portal, setting him away. What the hell kind of ending is that? Not only did everything go by ridiculously fast, but that's it? Eggman gets sucked into a portal and the credits roll? Such an underwhelming ending that doesn't leave me satisfied in the slightest. Apparently this was rumored to be some sort of Sonic Forces DLC tie-in, but considering the fact that the game is almost more than a year old now, I don't think it's happening. Thank God.
Yeah, man, I really hope it's not for Forces DLC, but rather just setting up the stage for a new Mania game. The one time Sonic games have continuity between them, and it's one of the best Sonic games, and one of the worst.
But here we are. We discussed the return to form gameplay, the amazing reimaginings of past ideas, and additions of original ideas as well. Sonic Mania is what Sega needed to have in order for them to continue with this franchise. To have a way to tell the critics and the fans Sonic isn't dead. For years, this game has been what tons of fans have been wanting, and I don't know what took so long for this to finally happen. Perhaps Sega needed a wake-up call caused by their past failures to truly realize that maybe giving the fans what they want can help them instead of hurt them. Sonic Mania has so many great ideas with so many talented people behind them to create a fun, cohesive, and fresh experience. Sonic Mania, while having tons of reused concepts and settings, feels so close to what a Sonic game should be, and it definitely feels like a breath of fresh air from the many other Sonic titles released before it. Although when it comes to ranking this game, it's a little bit of a harder process. Mania has so much of what I want in a Sonic game. A fun, fast-paced game with great level design and an amazing soundtrack. And while it was a nice change of pace with the return to form gameplay and aesthetics, I feel like the lack of original stages really does hurt Mania. There's nothing wrong with having Sonic going back to his roots, but having so much of this game taking place in well-known, already existing Sonic stages really gives Sonic Mania a bit of an identity crisis. While the returning stages do have some added gimmicks and new level designs, it comes off as too much as a remastering of the classics instead of an original game. This makes it even more confusing when the marketing of Mania tries to pass it off as a brand new experience. Christian Whitehead and his team can do better. Like I was mentioning earlier, I feel like Mania was more like an initiation, and now that their initiation is complete, the real work begins. Mania was a hit in every sort of way. Mania Plus came out as an expansion pack and DLC, but also a physical re-release. Also, a short animated series was commissioned by Sega to huge fan reception. The Sonic Mania brand is quickly becoming one of the most popular subsidiaries of Sonic, so definitely a sequel is already in the planning stages. And that's why I have to give Sonic Mania a B rank. This game has promise and passion behind it, much more than I've seen Sega give towards Sonic, though the lack of original stages and the settings made it feel less special to me. The fact that they added only 4 original zones compared to 8 returning zones just made me want more and more of the original content since they handled it so well. As much as Sega wants to treat Mania like an original game, it can't, due to it relying on so much of what the original classics had provided. Returning gimmicks, references to other existing stages in Sonic. Sonic Mania depends too much on the references and nostalgia to truly be an original Sonic game. I love Sonic Mania. It was truly a breath of fresh air from all the mediocrity, and the sense of love you feel from the people that created Mania is something that I haven't felt in a Sonic game in ages. You can tell that the people making this game truly had fun doing it, and Sega truly believed in the Mania team, and they believed Mania was going to be a great product. When a sequel is made, it has to rely on what Whitehead can do in terms of original content, not just remixing past ideas. I'm confident Whitehead's team can truly impress me for sequel. They have such great promise and potential, and that's why I leave Mania at a B rank. I personally can't rank Mania as an original game because I know it's not. But also, I know this is just the beginning for Whitehead's team, and I can't wait to see what they will bring to the table next time.
Sonic Mania truly deserves the praise it has gotten. Being the highest rated new Sonic game in 15 years, I had no doubt in my mind that Sega would want to do more with it. We got a ton of merchandise, a 5-part animated miniseries on the official Sonic YouTube channel, and tons of talk for Sega's mascot finally taking a nice turn and being positive for once. I'm almost certain that there will be another Sonic Mania game in the future. Whether or not it's a direct sequel titled Sonic Mania 2 or some other name, I know it'll have a great impact on everyone who plays it, just as Sonic Mania did. Sonic Mania Plus was definitely an awesome DLC that is 100% worth the $5, however I just wish they could have taken more time to change the level design more in all the stages and really utilize Ray and Mighty's abilities, seeing how they are the new characters to be played as. I'll have to agree with Victor on this one. When it comes to giving the game a rank, I give Mania Plus a B rank as well. Overall, it's a solid addition to the base game, however it just falls flat in about 80% of the Encore mode levels in terms of new level design as previously mentioned. Had they taken more advantage of the new playable characters, this would have definitely been a solid A rank.
And here we are again. Again, Kyle, thank you so much for accompanying me. The thing about S rank is that I'm actually thinking of, later down the line, reviewing every single Sonic game. And, maybe have a few more guests that have an attachment to a game, and maybe sometime during that, you could come back sometime.
Yeah, man, of course. We definitely should do this.
Kyle? Kyle? I guess he had to go. Either way, guys, so what game should I cover next on S-Rank? I know there are tons of them, from Unleashed to Lost World, there's, you know, even the original classics. I mean, what you should do is definitely leave a like on this because we worked really hard to bring this to you. And honestly, you should probably tell me in the comment section below what we should... The fuck? Come on, what the fuck was that? In the middle of what?